is it on? Okay, there, we're focused. So hello, welcome to part 2 of me explaining my 5-part painting series based on the different stages of self-actualization. So this painting is the second painting of a 5-part series. I did a video on my first painting called Disconnection, so you can go and find that somewhere on my page or my socials. Today we're going to focus on this painting called Enlightenment. The first stage of self-actualization is disconnection, feeling a sense of disconnection with something, with the self, with the world, whatever it is. Actually, I have that painting right on me right here. So here's the first painting that I did, focused on disconnection, and I explained what I was thinking while I was creating it, give a little bit of my testimony of how I was feeling in this and how I got out of it. And yeah, so you can go and see that. So this is the first painting, and today we're gonna focus on the second painting. Okay, so let's get into it. Let me put you together. Crap. Okay. In my last video, when I was going over the first painting of this 5-part self-actualization painting series, I was going over feeling disconnected to the self, feeling disconnected to the world, and how it just takes listening to that small yes, or it just takes saying a small yes to whatever your intuition or God is telling you to do. And it can be something so small and minuscule that you don't even realize that that is the answer to getting out of that deep, dark, mucky feeling of feeling disconnected. This painting basically focuses on what to do, well, not what to do, but it focuses on what comes next after that spark, that realization. And this focuses on what that spark feels like, that spark of change that one may really be praying for and hoping for and pleading for. And when you finally feel that, what does it feel like, and how to dig deeper into that experience, I would say, is what this painting focuses on. I'm going to read some of my notes and then I'm going to explain them a bit further. But my first note: once you say that first yes to where your intuition is leading you, then you begin to become enlightened on new possibilities and ideas. Stagnation can sometimes feel super inescapable, and just like you can feel stuck, and just it can feel almost impossible sometimes to understand how to get out of that. But once we say yes to what we feel our intuition is telling us to do, and sometimes that's way easier said than done. Sometimes we aren't super in tune with hearing our intuition, or maybe we've spent our whole lives pushing down that spark of intuition, that little voice, that little sense of knowing that we hear. For me, hearing our intuition is just hearing messages from God. And sometimes we experience things that make us think that we shouldn't be listening to that small part of ourself, that small part that God talks to us, where, it's like, hey, go on a walk, or hey, go doodle, hey, go and, I don't know, play in some snow. And sometimes that simple action is exactly what we're looking for. But I will say that when you say that first yes, if you allow it to, there's a trickle effect that comes about, and you start to get these revelations and these recognizations of new ideas and new possibilities and things you wouldn't have thought to think about. It's kind of like how the saying pressure creates diamonds. Sometimes those like ucky mucky darker times can really be what pushes us to really go on that path that we've been really wanting to go on. And sometimes that's exactly what it takes for us to really stay on that path. So, sometimes, don't get me wrong, it would be amazing if we could just live a life where we don't really have to go through icky things in order to experience joy. But it just seems like once we experience that icky era, in that mucky, dark era of things, that we start to take our spiritual health more seriously, because we know what it feels like to experience that sense of hell on earth, or hell in your mind. Kind of like how some people say that hell and heaven can be a mindset, and it totally can be. To get out of that requires a lot of different things for different people. So my notes also say, there's a gradual change of mindset that uses this past pain and grief of where we hoped we would be and alchemizes it into new forms of creativity. This, I feel like, is a bar. Because like that pain that we experience and that grief that we experience, that can just completely, like, all that energy that is used for those things can be alchemized into whole new forms of self-expression. And in ways, it's us being creative to start exploring ways of escape. It makes me think about how a lot of times, like, when people have been in emergency situations in the past, like, let's say someone's in a plane crash or someone's stranded on an island or something, as a random example. I've been watching Lost lately, if you can't tell. People have to get really, really creative on how to survive and on how to alchemize this really crazy experience that happened into something that they can work with and something that they can prosper from. And you see it everywhere from people who are in really crazy situations and how they had to be really creative in order to live. That's kind of how it is for us mentally sometimes, where we are being called to take pain and grief that we've experienced and alchemize it. Because I feel like powerful emotions are like these huge balls of energy that we can use to alchemize into amazing things. But we can only do that if we listen to, God's instructions, or we listen to where our intuition is taking us. It's just really crazy to think that, like, it's all our own choice. Like, if you choose to say no to your intuition forever, you can choose to stay in that sadness forever, and you may never see the possibilities. And it's crazy to think about it, but you do see it. You see it in a lot of places. You see it in a lot of situations, and it's just I feel so grateful personally to have taken the time to understand that that no stage of this process is permanent. It is always changing, always flowing, just like life. And that makes me so, so grateful to know, because it can really just feel like nothing's going to change sometimes. And I just remember, at least for me, just like a year ago, just wanting change and really wanting to escape from this stagnancy and not knowing what to do and trying to do all these things. And then, wow, bam, boom, pow, I said this one small yes, and then it all worked and changed for me. And it was always tied to creativity. The answer was always within creating, for me personally. But I do think creativity is one of the best medicines out there, and it holds so many answers to so many questions that we have. And when I say creativity, I don't just mean creating paintings. Like, creativity comes in so many different things. It honestly irks me just a little bit when people say, "Oh, I'm not a creative." Like, let's get some facts straight first. Being an artist and being a creative are two different things. In my personal opinion, everybody has the ability to be a creative, but only people who take their creativity seriously are able to be artists. And I'm willing to hear people out on different explanations, but being creative just means, like, it's just an action that we all do. When you cook a meal, you're being creative. Even if you're following a recipe, like, you have to sometimes alter that recipe. And, like, altering a recipe is being creative, or even just deciding to follow the recipe, you're still being creative. If you, like, I don't know, even sometimes, like, making your own tunes, like if you're walking down the street and just that is an action of being creative. You just created a tune. Or, like, even if it was based off of something you heard before, you just use what you heard and created something different out of it. You took one part of a song, and like, it's just, creativity is in our everyday lives. And like, when you put on clothes, that is creativity, because you had to you're expressing something. So yeah, I just feel like we are all creative, and there's just so many different forms of creativity to explore. And sometimes we wouldn't explore certain forms of creativity if we didn't experience certain experiences, because creativity is expression, and it requires experiencing different experiences to express differently. So take what you will from that. Let's talk a little more about what I painted and where I'm trying to take it. When I was painting this, I wanted to focus on the inner child. This is relating to the inner child and how it's the inner part of us that knows what we want and has these big grand ideas. But for some reason, we tell ourselves it's not worth listening to what this part of ourselves is trying to tell us. This stage of self-actualization is about us finally listening to that little voice within that just wants to play or explore. And the first painting of the series shows a child that is sad and alone in an ocean, disconnected from the world. I wanted to focus on how there's this child that's just full of all this gunk right here and darkness, and like, once this idea like sparks in their head, all this darkness and stuff starts to fade away. And it almost looks like, I wanted to simulate tears too, because like you're kind of it's a sense of releasing the grief that one had for what they hoped they would be experiencing. And it's just like so crazy how the inner child is so important to our ability to create and our ability to step into whatever we desire our purpose to be. And I would argue that we just about always know what we want. I feel like sometimes we experience things from people and traumas and all, where we are, what's the word? We are convinced that little voice within us that has always been there since we were a kid is not worth listening to. It makes me think about like, if we took a look inside of our brain, I feel like we all have this little kid that's still there, and that kid that is within us has experienced everything we've experienced to this day. So like, think about when you're a little kid and you're not, you don't really know how the world works. You just say what you want. You're like, I want that. I want to do this. Oh wow, I want to ride an elephant and then and then fly into space. Like, all these like crazy, super duper creative ideas that we have. And then people throughout growing up sometimes will push those ideas away, or make us feel like those ideas are ridiculous, or that there's no importance to them. And that can be really detrimental as a kid, honestly, because one can start to feel like, oh, well, my ideas are too out there, they're too creative, I need to dial it down so that so that people don't keep saying all these ridiculous things about my ideas. And that creates a buildup of just like stagnancy within us. And being able to finally have that sense of enlightenment, create that spark within you to realize like, oh, I don't actually have to believe what people were telling me. Like, these ideas actually are divine. Let me start stepping deeper into it. And I do feel like all trauma is recycled. Like, all hurt is recycled. Like, hurt people hurt people. So when people tell us like hurtful things about our ideas, it's only because someone told them hurtful things about their ideas, and then that person told them hurtful things about their ideas, and the train only continues, and it just recycles and recycles and recycles each generation. Being able to like step out of that, one, breaks generational curses. And who doesn't want to do that? Because we want our generations to like get better and better at these things, right? But it's also the sense of like doing it for you and knowing that if you do it for you, you're gonna do it for your family line. Even if you don't plan to have kids, you're still gonna affect someone else in life. Like, we all affect each other, and that person is gonna affect their family, and etc, etc. You hear it all the time, like, oh, like the inner child is so important, like it's so important to play as an adult. It's so important to play and to like explore your creativity, blah 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 blah. And it is. I agree. Because there's just so many answers and so much clarity behind the door of self-acceptance, into stepping into accepting the ideas that we receive, accepting, you know, where we really want to go, accepting our wants and our desires. Well, from our heart, like our wants and our desires that are within our heart. It's important to accept those things. But also it's important to still clearly see all of our wants and desires, even like the ones that aren't good for us. It's important to see them clearly and to understand them clearly. And that clarity a lot of times comes from us understanding what we genuinely want within our heart and all what we genuinely desire within our soul. Like, for example, if someone desires, I don't know, if someone desires love, they just want to feel love from their community, but like they go about it in ways that aren't healthy, it's important to take time to recognize within your heart, like, you just want to be loved for who you are. But maybe that might come out in wants and desires that aren't the most healthy for us. Like, I don't know, like whatever is unhealthy. Everyone's so different. I can't give examples, but okay, so my next note. Typically when we listen to this part of ourself, it starts creating a lightness of spirit as we feel the stagnancy start to wash away. Things start to feel a little lighter, more creative ideas start coming to mind, and there's a sense of newfound fulfillment that enters our soul. It feels like undoubtable elevation out of a dark place and finally starting to see some light. So with this, I kind of already covered this, but there is a sense of fulfillment I feel that comes from when we start to accept these divine downloads that come to our mind, and we start to really see we start to see these things as important, no matter how big and ridiculous or no matter how small and minuscule it might seem. Sometimes we get sparks of ideas that seem like, oh my gosh, can I actually do that? Or sometimes there's not even the question of can I, it's like, I can't do that. That's not possible for me. And I will say that a lot of times, some of the best ideas we have, sometimes sometimes the best ideas we have, fear can talk us out of it. And you know when fear is talking you out of a divine idea, when you feel like you're not big enough to do that idea, or you feel like that idea is too small to help you, yet you know in your intuition what you're being told, or you keep getting the same intuitive messages. So take that how you want to take that. Fear is a trickster. I think that fear does really well with making up excuses that logistically make sense, but sometimes following your intuition doesn't logistically make sense until after the fact. And I think for some people that's really hard to grasp, because it's like, okay, well, this doesn't make sense to me, why am I going to do it? Versus like, okay, this doesn't make sense to me, but I know that I feel in my intuition that this is what God is telling me to do, or I know in my intuition that this is what I feel like I really should be doing. Like in your soul, in your being, you feel it. And I think it's really important to sometimes do it even if it doesn't make sense, but only if you feel it within your soul that it's meant for you to do. Because God is so complex and life is so complex, and there's so many little things that we don't understand and may never understand that hold such power that we can tap into. One of my final notes: we respect this process of enlightenment by taking time to listen to our intuition or God, no matter how small or insignificant or big it may sound, we always know what we need to do deep down. A lot of times it's just fear that talks us out of actually doing it. Dang, that's kind of what I just said. That is really what I had to say for this painting. I really am proud of how this painting came out. Let me talk about the creative process of this painting actually. So for this painting, I had actually drawn everything out, and I had painted everything you see in purple first. And then everything else, like all of this yellow and the blue and even this like spark right here, I did not know what those were gonna look like until the very end. And honestly, when I went in to paint this, I had no plan. I had no plan at all. It was really like an abstract idea. I literally freestyled this entire painting, and I had no idea where it was gonna go or what it was gonna look like. And I just freestyled it, and I just did whatever called to me, and I'm just really grateful that it did what it did. And it's actually ironic because this white part up here, that was actually the very last thing that I added. Because I knew that I wanted this child to be looking up at something like whoa, but I just didn't know how I wanted to perceive that. And then I ended up just playing with the colors up here, and it started to look like just a big divine download, and it painted itself. And that's kind of how I know that this was like a divine downloaded painting, because I just didn't know where it was going to go. And that's honestly how I feel about this entire series. Like this entire series, I freestyled majority of the paintings, actually all of them. Yeah, I freestyled all of the actual paintings. Like I drew everything, but the colors, I did not know how it was going to work out. So I'm really grateful that I listened to the call, and I just did what I thought I needed to do. Also, something about this painting is that this also is about finding your North Star. When I say finding your North Star, I would define the North Star as like your focus. Like, what do you want to focus on? What do you want to be doing? What is your mission? What are your morals? Like, what's your grounding? That's what I would say, your grounding. So yeah, what is your North Star? What is your grounding? So that no matter what's happening or what you're doing, you know that, hey, this is what I'm focused on. This is the mission right here. Like for me, my North Star is that I want to be a full-time artist. I really want to just be able to create. My North Star is that I want to play and get paid for it in a way where I can live comfortably. I can help support those in need that are around me, and I can live the life of my dreams. And that's my North Star. But also I want to do it all like with God for sure, because I wouldn't want to do it like just all alone. But that's my North Star. Everyone has a different North Star. And once you find that grounding, that North Star, it becomes way easier to know what is for you and what is not for you, what you need to be doing, what you don't need to be doing. And yeah, so that's something else I wanted to say. But yes, thank you so much for joining me. I enjoy talking about this painting, and I'm excited to tell you more about the other paintings as well. Next, we will go into the third painting, and it's honestly one of my favorites, so I'm excited to go over it for sure. But yes, if you have any comments, questions, concerns, just feel free to comment below and I will get back to you. And yay, self-actualization!